Lesson 4.3, solving quadratics using factoring. So we're going to start with a trinomial. A trinomial has three terms, and we know we're going to create two binomials. The first term has to be x, because x times x is the only way to get back to x squared. And then we need to find two values that multiply to negative 18. That's our c value, but then they must add to the b value 3. So if we took a positive 6 and a negative 3, 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. 6 plus negative 3 gets us back to the 3 here. Now you're going to try one. Okay, so remember you're going to create two binomials that when multiplied together would equal the x squared minus 8x minus 9. Okay, so hopefully you got the first term has to be x. X times x will get me back to x squared. We need to find something that multiplies to negative 9 yet adds to negative 8. So you're thinking of all the different factors of negative 9. It could be 3 times 3, 9 times 1, and hopefully you got minus 9 and plus 1. Negative 9 times a positive 1 gets me back to negative 9. Negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. Next, we can factor using special products. So first we're going to look at the difference between squares. So an example might be q squared minus 81. So again, we'll create our two binomials. We know the first term has to be q, and then we'll find the square root of 81. And one of the values would be positive, and one of the values has to be negative, so that when I multiply, the b term cancels. So for instance, we would end up with q squared minus 9q plus 9q minus 81. When we combine our like terms, the b value cancels, so we end up with q squared minus 81. Given x squared plus 8x plus 16, we recognize that this is a perfect square trinomial because our c value is a perfect square and our b value is the square root doubled. So we have our binomial. We know the first term has to be x, and then we ask ourselves what times what would give me 16, and it's 4. So we can write this as x plus 4 and then square that value. The final component of this lesson is using the zero product property to solve quadratic equations. So if you were given something like x squared minus 5x equals 24, the first thing you need to do is collect all your terms on one side. So if I subtract 24 from both sides, I would end up with x squared minus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Secondly, we're going to factor. We need to find something that multiplies to negative 24 yet adds to the 5. So we'll create our binomial, set it equal to 0, and we end up with x minus 8, x plus 3. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24, and then negative 8 plus 3 would get me back to the negative 5. Our final step is going to be setting each binomial to 0. X minus 8 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. So if I add 8 to both sides, x equals 8. Subtract 3, x equals negative 3. So to recap, when we're using the zero product property, make sure that all our terms are on one side, then we factor, then we set each binomial equal to 0, and then solve for x.